Boom, and welcome back to another episode of Seminoles Sideline 365. I am KB, and with me, as usually always, is the old man. And we're going to go right into it. We're going to talk about something that's obviously on all Florida State fans' mind. I know some of you have dove deep into this. Some of you have not had time to, like I have, but it's on everyone's radar right now, which is potentially a big announcement coming on Wednesday, August 2nd. Is the announcement potentially of Florida State giving their 2 weeks notice, if you want to call it, of their departure of the ACC in a year. Now, the Board of Trustees is set to meet on Wednesday, which is a surprise meeting. It wasn't directly on the schedule for the Board of Trustees at Florida State to meet and discuss. Now, with that, there is nothing specifically on the agenda as of yet that I have seen that is calling this out. That is not something I would have expected to see on a public agenda, though, is to say, oh, we're leaving the ACC to be on a public agenda of the Board of Trustees. There's something about some booster money, raising booster funds or something like that. But there's nothing explicitly saying, a top item, which I don't find surprising.
Now, wait a minute. Go ahead, and
You'll give your 2 cents because you've researched this. But they are meeting tomorrow. It is a surprise, and like I said, Florida State has to give written notice to the ACC before the 15th if they're going to be departing within the next year. This is why everyone's getting excited, because this is really the only meeting between now and then the trustees coming together and discussing. The other thing that came up the other day, or more recently, is that I believe War Chant or one of the sites talked about this. You'll probably bring this up. Is that the Board of Trustees chair Pete Collins said, I feel really good about our prospects, and he was basically, in no certain words, saying that the grant of rights is not going to prevent the university from seeking better pastures or greener pastures. That they are not afraid of that fine. They are not afraid that the contract, the contract or the agreement they have with the ACC is not going to keep them bound to a bad deal. With that being said, old man, I know you've dove a lot deeper into this than I have. So what are you feeling? What are you seeing? What is the latest on Florida State's potential move out of the ACC?
I'll tell you, this is, I think it started over the last week, kind of started last week and then over the weekend, and it has captured my attention. Two things have captured my attention over the last several days. One is the possibility, and I think a real good possibility, of Florida State leaving the ACC. That's number one. Number two is they could be flying out with the UFOs that have been all over the news. The UAPs or UFOs, which I believe both these issues have smoke, okay? And some severe smoke being generated. And so since we're not talking about UFOs tonight,
unfortunately, man.
Well, it could be Florida State flying out of the ACC. However, since we're talking Florida State, and you've already highlighted a couple of things, and this is, this is going to be a little unstructured, but I think it's really a huge deal. This is a huge deal, and I didn't wear any crazy stuff tonight. I don't have my crazy glasses on, because actually it's a very serious issue. It's a very interesting issue, and certainly a very intriguing issue, and potentially another history-making issue for Florida State University. And we'll go back and forth on some of this, and I just want to start off with what you were saying. First of all, there is a very interesting FSU Board of Trustees meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 3 p.m. Now, this date was moved up some, but according to Peter Collins, the chair, he said this had been done in advance. It wasn't done 48 hours ago. It had been set up somewhat in advance. Now, I watched him today. That's Peter Collins, chairman of the FSU Board of Trustees. He was on live on War Chant, okay? And I thought the War Chant staff, that was Ira, and that was, who was it? Tom Lang, did an interview with him, And I thought it was very good. And I think FSU fans should tune into that. We give credit where credit is due. Okay? I thought they did a good job with that.
Wait, I thought you had an inside source with the Board of Trustees that you could have.
No. We're not the insiders. Well, we're not here to debate. We're not here.
There's a lot of insiders on Twitter, apparently.
Yeah, we're not here to debate why they're a little bit more on the inside. But it was very interesting what Peter Collins said. He said, first of all, you can't believe anything on Twitter, which I don't think is necessarily true. And then he said, and he wasn't actually laughing, but he did a laughing. And you can only believe about 10% of what you hear on War Chant. I thought that was, and I hope I quoted that right. I think that was very, very interesting. But now, back to the reality of what we have. They're going to have this meeting. And as you stated, KB, there's no, and he said, and it's been said in Twitter and other places, there's nothing on the agenda, okay? There's nothing on the agenda about athletics, really.
Yeah.
Except for the Seminoles boosters wanting a loan request.
Yeah, right here,
okay.
line item 4, Seminole boosters loan. That's the only thing of financial, it looks like, this related to athletics.
But as our friend Lee Corso says, hold on a minute there. Hold on. Look at item number 4. If you look at item number 4.
Yeah,
item number 4 says open forum.
Okay.
And that's and the presenter of Open Forum is Peter Collins, the chair. Now, looking at the evidence, I think that is where the announcement will. Now, I say an announcement. I don't know what the hell it's going to be. I don't sit in those. I don't know what they have to do. But I tell you this. I think that's where the issue is going to be raised. Action item number 4. No, I'm sorry. Topic number 4, open forum of Board of Trustees, that Collins is going to air that out or give a presentation or have someone give a presentation in that issue. That could be President McCullough giving a presentation as well. Or he could maybe have Alford do it, okay, the AD. Whatever. Here's what I think is going to happen. That's when it's going to be aired out that Florida State has the intention to leave the ACC. And I don't know if they take a vote right then and there, because I'll tell you, you know how these things work. When I worked, anytime there was going to be a vote, they already knew the results. They already have the votes. They already have. You don't take a vote even in Congress. They don't take a vote unless they know they're going to win. Yeah. So I think
They've been hinting at this for months now. Like you said, I think they've been putting it out there to warm people up to it.
Obviously.
And especially when this chart came out, and they've linked business come
huge.
out. The gap, and like you said, I think they've been laying this groundwork, garnering the votes for this. And they had that trustee meeting that we did a show about, 3 or 4 months ago.
Yes.
And I think you said garnering these votes so that when this comes around, you've already got the votes. You've already got the votes, right?
Listen, if you've worked like you do and I have, working in the real world of corporations or semi-corporations or corporations like, any meeting where a decision's been made, everybody's already gotten the memo and come on board or not on board. And so I believe, and I will be very surprised if it doesn't happen under that forum, under that listing there. Yeah. If this meeting goes down with nothing coming out about Florida State leaving, I think it is a huge mistake. Okay? Florida State, and I've been on Twitter very active this week, the last several days. There's no option for Florida State. They have to leave the ACC, KB. There's no other option. As a famous general once said in the military, when you're surrounded, your options are limited. You either surrender or you fight on. And I will say that the president, Richard McCullough, and the athletic director, Mike Alford, these are aggressive players. Their legacy is tied to what happens to this university in terms of where they go next. Staying in the ACC is not an option. Is not an option. If they have to mortgage the house today and spread out the loan money for that mortgage, they need to do it. Period. Where they end up is a secondary question, which we'll discuss tonight.
And like we said, and we talked about this on the previous show when the Board of Trustees met about this, and we thought there was some smoke with the fire of moving to another conference when it first came up, is that ACC is going to come. They've probably been making different offers about, hey, we can make this better deal with ESPN. I don't know if ESPN is going to make a better deal as they're hemorrhaging money right now. They're cutting staff left and right. They're trying to get out of this deal, I think, with the ACC. They're not going to give you more money at this point. The other thing is that they said, well, maybe we can do a better revenue share model where the best teams get more money and the worst teams get lower money. And they even brought that up in the interview with Ward Chant. Collins brought up, and he said, and I quote him, and he said, let's say it gives Florida State $6 million more a year, and he's referring to the ACC. Let's say they give Florida State $6 million a year. Okay, we're not losing $35 million, we're losing $29 million to our competitors. He's totally right. So even if Florida State, if ACC's like, oh yeah, we'll kick you back a little bit more, that's still $29 million less than they're going to get in the SEC or Big Ten. So there's no way the ACC is countering with an offer that actually makes sense. And that's why, like you said, Alford and the team has no other choice than to get out of this and like you said, take on the initial debt for the long-term return on investment. Like because you're in a losing race, short-term and long-term versus short-term debt that you'll take on by moving conferences. And I think financially it all makes sense because these deals are basically ironclad with the SEC and the Big Ten and that they're taking. So like you said, it may look bad on the books short term, but you're going to get the money back. The ROI is baked into it, right? You can't lose out on that money. You'll just have to, let the CPAs know, hey, it's going to come back to us. And like you said, too, and thinking about this, the athletic programs, it's not just about the athletic programs. These programs fund a lot of the other things that the universities do, right? So it's about, like you said, it's about the long-term viability of the institution and what that money can do for everyone else. It's not just about football. It's not just about soccer or softball. It's about what that money can do to grow the university. And if you stay in the ACC, you're saying we want to continue to stay mediocre, or we don't want to grow into a big-time brand across everything we do. And that money is going to go a long way in terms of continue to improve and continue to elevate this program to being even better. And that's why you have to you have to make that risk, say we're gonna get out of this contract and we're gonna take that and grow to the next level of what Florida State can be.
Yeah, I totally agree with your comments there. And there's a few other details that need to be added to this. Is coming out of the ACC kickoff meetings last week, there was this quote that I saw that basically Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, I guess that's his title, I don't know, that ACC is now comfortably in third place of conferences. He seems to be comfortable with that, okay? And they didn't come up with any other significant news in terms of revenue sharing, but comfortably in third place. Because here's going to be the problem. You and I know, and we've discussed this at length, that what we used to call the Power 5 is shrinking to a Power 3, maybe
Power 2.
A Power 2, okay, type model. And if you don't get out ahead of this boulder, and I'm not talking about Boulder, Colorado, this boulder will roll over you. There's no way you can offer anything to Florida State to stay in the ACC. I mean, it's not even possible. So I think we understand that the gap isn't small. It is large, and you can't make up that kind of money. So for Florida State, you either have to, you got to pay the piper now, or you're going to pay it down the road and kick the can. It would be a legacy hook to these two, the president and the AD, to their legacies if they allow that to happen. I would rather see Florida State buy out whatever money they have to negotiate or whatever, and get out on the street as a free agent and take their chances, even if they don't have a seat at another table right now. Exactly. I'd rather see them get out and set up as an independent that way, because it's going to cost you less now than it will later.
Well, to your point, Florida State will always, even when they were awful the last couple of years before, last year, there's still a marketable brand. They still bring eyeballs to the television.
Absolutely.
But there is a point where you lose that seat at the table. Someone else will take that seat at that conference table. In those two main power conferences. You can't just stay. There'll always be a spot for Florida State. There will not be. Oregon will take it. USC will argue the spot. They will find seats at that table for other people. Florida State's not the only brand in town. So, like you said, you need to be proactive about the situation. You can't just sit back and say, oh, no, there'll always be a seat at the SEC table for us. No, there won't be. Because someone else will jump on the opportunity for that and fill it for you. Because there's other great brands out there available that are looking to move, and they'll move a lot quicker than Florida State will. And that's why I think it's great that the administration is being proactive about it. And back to your quote from the ACC commissioner, or whoever said it on the ACC commissioner.
Phillips.
I have it up here on the board up here. I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
So he says, revenue generation comes to be a priority, but this league is third right now in revenue as we go forward into whatever the next TV deal is. That is our conference where we've looked at. We've had multiple TV consultants. Third is certainly a good position, but we want to gain traction financially in order to close the gap with the SEC and Big Ten. Now, let's look back at the tab. You may be right there with Pac-12. So that's where words need to be backed up with data. You go into a meeting, you could say, "Hey, our revenue numbers, we're at 95% of revenue year over year, but that revenue could be $25 million off your revenue target, right? So we're in third place, guys. We're third biggest conference revenue wise.
We're gonna get a bronze medal. Yeah. We're gonna get the bronze, man. We're on the platform.
You're third place. You're third, maybe fourth place side of the Pac-12, but you're $40 million behind." That's where words need to be backed up with data. He didn't mention the data. He mentioned the words.
And he didn't mention 2036 is what the contract we're tied into.
Exactly. That's why data is better than words. And that's where I give credit to the administration that they're being proactive. They're not trusting words. They're going right into the data, looking at these numbers and saying, long-term, this deal sucks. Short-term, this deal sucks. And we're going to get the hell out. Hopefully, we'll hear about them getting out of this contract tomorrow.
Yeah, this is important too. This is important. We were talking about it. Now, Florida State, August the 15th is the deadline for exiting, and the school must make notification to the ACC with intentions to leave. Yep. So that is what I think is going to come up at the forum. Okay, they're going to say, we're going to give our intentions like a resignation. I'm resigning. We're giving you 2 weeks notice. Okay, in this case, you must notify the conference and its members by the deadline to leave the following June. So if they give that notification, then they can get the rest of the payoffs done and leave the next June of 24. June of 24. Yep. Failure to notify properly by 15 August would result in a 22-month wait period, which is 2 full seasons. Florida State. And then, as you said, KB, there may not be enough chairs left at the Big Ten, and certainly in the SEC may not be enough there.
Because both those conferences are already going to have 16 teams.
Yeah. And despite what these two conferences are saying publicly, that we're good, we're good where we're at now. We don't have any new chairs. They're full of shit. Okay, of course they can't, because then they would have some legal problems. Well, but if you don't think a week, a nod and a wink is going on, that you have something here. Now I'll say this. there is so much smoke and what they call in the intelligence fields, a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise in the channels. And this noise sounds different than it did before. And the Tallahassee Democrat, the Tallahassee Democrat newspaper put out some information that they said, let me make sure. And this was within the last 48 hours, I believe. I hope I'm not misquoting. That FSU, it looks like a done deal. FSU will join the Big Ten along with Clemson, Oregon, and Washington. And if you figure USC has already been brought on board and UCLA has been brought on board, what a powerhouse conference from coast to coast you will have now. And the recruiting that goes with it and the national exposure that goes with it.
Yeah, I don't know if they confirm that. I think they were speculating on that. If this is the article.
Is that the one in the Tallahassee Democrat?
Yeah, this is Tallahassee Democrat. I think they're...
no, they didn't confirm it.
Yeah,
but they were talking very strongly. Very strongly. They said nothing has been made official. Of course, nothing's been made official. But they want to get out ahead of stories as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would put the Big Ten at 20 teams, I believe.
Do you think there's a special number for the Big Ten and for the SEC?
I think they want to be at even numbers.
Yeah, you got to have an even number.
Because right now they're at 16. Because I was looking up, I was looking at both conferences' composition.
Yeah.
So this is the Big Ten as at 2024.
Yeah.
What this looks like. So they have 16 teams with the addition of USC and UCLA.
So 4 would be a good number.
Exactly. They would be able to even out to the two opponents because they don't have divisions anymore, just like the ACC. So they would be able to keep that kind of 2-play opponents or some extension of that.
And leave this up for a minute, which is very interesting. You talk about it, I'm not going to go back and research at all of why it happened and who did what to whom. But look we used to have Maryland in the ACC. They jumped out. So they've been making they've been making good money because their program was in some financial. Yes. And Rutgers makes more money than Florida State does on football right now.
Yep. So
and somebody said that. I can't even remember who it was. Can you imagine? If we stayed in the ACC, Rutgers would make a hell of a lot more bag money than we would.
Yep.
That right there tells you Florida State is not staying in the ACC. That shouldn't even be discussed anymore.
I mean, Vanderbilt makes more football money than Florida State does.
Of course. But it's unbelievable. Now, here's other reasons that I will provide. I think you're on board with this. If you're not, you'll say that shows that Florida State is leaving, period. Okay? And here it is. Peter Collins on that War Chant Live said some very interesting things. He was very careful, obviously.
Yeah.
He was very careful. He's a smart guy. He's been around. He's not going to expose something that's going to come up tomorrow, okay? Or in subsequent days, okay? I'll add that. He said, we are going to make the right decision for FSU. And he said it very strongly. He said very strongly, we're going to make the right decision. He also said this that I want to add to this is you quote, I'm quoting him now. First of all, that was a quote. This is a quote. This is from Peter Collins. We can't be afraid to make a tough decision even if you don't know the outcome. Now, some people can say, well, that means you're just staying safe in the ACC doing nothing. You know what? No way. These guys are too aggressive to not throw all the cards on the table. Play for the entire chips here. They know that it's better to get out, not have a place right now at the table, potentially, and be an independent than it is to stay in a losing, sinking ship of the ACC.
Yeah.
Agree or disagree?
No, yeah. And I think, like, tomorrow, I think you'll get the announcement of we're definitely leaving. You won't get the announcement of where, Because I think, like you said, we just need to put it on the books, and then we'll decide which is the right fit for us. And they'll take into consideration costs. Like you said, travel. Who's the better fit for the university altogether? Because, like I said, it's beyond athletics. It's about academics. It's about everything, right? And they have to look at that. So, like you said, it's about getting the announcement on the book, so they have open options. And I do believe that both conferences probably have extended a committable offer, as they would say in the recruiting world. I do believe probably both conferences have given them a committable offer at this point, in the back channels. But by having that out there, the statement out there by the Board of Trustees and on the books, then they can finally start having conversations.
I believe you're right. Then legally, once they make notification, that opens the door for negotiations with future partners.
Yeah, and then they can look at, okay, look, the Big Ten has a 7-year, I think, TV contract locked in right now. SEC's 2-year, what's going to make the most sense long term for us, and what's going to make the most, culturally as a university in the South? Do we want to be in the big, stuff like that? So, like you said, I think it's all about getting it out there, and then they'll make the right decision for the university, whether it's the Big Ten or the SEC.
Let me add a couple more quotes from Peter Collins.
Yeah,
he said the words, "You can't get tied up in quote paralysis by analysis." Right?
Yeah.
Overthinking it, trying to get every little piece. He says there are some unknowns, okay? There are unknowns if you decided to stay, and there are unknowns if you decide to leave, okay? However, in my opinion, it is better to leave than it would be to stay.
Well,
there's no doubt in my mind. I don't even
take a damn CPA to understand that.
No, that's it right there. That's the ball game.
It doesn't take a CPA to understand.
And then he finalized some of his comments by saying, "We must be willing to make the tough decisions." The tough decision is not to stay. The tough decision is to go naked and afraid into the jungle. All right, but I think they're going to be well clothed, and I think they're going more into a big city than they are into a jungle, because I think they have figured it out. And as you say, there's indications under the table. We're going to be fine, because he even said, despite our down years, people always wanted to see Florida State on TV. Why did they put Florida State in the kickoff game against LSU when we were just coming off a 5-win season? There are a variety of things that show that Florida State is a viable and valuable brand out there for TV and other reasons. Yeah. And we don't know. We have no clue what the TV networks are doing. There's so many of them. As you and I were talking the other night, you've got Sling TV, you got Roku TV, you've got Fox, NBC, ABC, ESPN, all vying. The CW, Amazon is trying to get
ACC
football.
Just got that new deal with the CW network. That's going to pay off a lot for the ACC, right?
No. But you understand what I'm saying. There's a lot of money being thrown around on this thing. But for Florida State to stay is impossible. And you can write me down for this. They will not be in the ACC much longer.
All right. So we talked about that, and I agree with you that that's basically a done deal that they're going to leave. So to kind of wrap this up and to think about it, the next step here is that they're going to put their time in. Say we got 2 weeks, or our 2 weeks are in. We have a year to decide, and I think that decision of where they're going to go is going to happen pretty quickly, because, like you said, those seats are going to fill up pretty quickly for these conferences. And these conferences also want to set their table of their teams so that they can set schedules. They can get, SEC can renegotiate their deal, I think, for 2 years. So they want to get their affairs in order as well. And set future schedules as well for for these primetime slots and stuff like that. So they don't want to be floating teams in and out all the time. And the Big Ten, like I said, has a 7-year, $8 billion deal. SEC's is 3-year, $10 billion deal to CBS. From CBS to ESPN. So, and that will play in the heads of FSU too. Do they want to take a short-term bet with the SEC? Where it's going from CBS. I don't know if I want to get back in bed to ESPN.
Do you want to short it? Hey, do you want to short it or do you want to long it?
Well, that's the thing. you will make more money with the SEC in the short term. It's a bigger deal for less years, but you're dealing with ESPN again. And I think ESPN will probably lose that contract, and CBS may get it for a little bit cheap. That's the thing. SEC has brand power, so I think they'll probably be able to get back to CBS afterwards, but ESPN's going to lose that deal because they're already cutting people. I don't know if they can afford to re-up.
Hey, they didn't cut my man Lee Corso. He's still on there, buddy. 2023 Lee. Yeah, love that guy. Love that guy.
But then you have the Big Ten, which is 7 years. You're locked into that, so there is some financial security where you'll get all your money back from going to debt, $30 million a year. You'll be able to pay off what you owe the ACC or the grant of rights. So there's the security there. So it'll be interesting, the mindset, like you said. That's the paralysis by analysis. So like, which deal should we go with?
Yeah.
That's where you work ahead.
No.
But let's just think about the fun part. Who would you rather, if you're a fan, what matchup, what conference would you rather go into? Would you rather dump yourself into, the SEC and play into, a conference like that and the matchups? And do you think there's more upside or more fun into a matchup like this and going into the SEC schedule of Florida, Bama? You got Texas, you got Oklahoma now.
A&M, Jimbo.
You got to re-up with Jimbo Fisher in that rivalry. You got Florida already. So, would you like this or on the flip side?
Well, you already play Florida, so I think that's a state law that we have to play Florida.
I think you would keep like Miami if they don't move with you. You would probably keep Miami.
Yeah, I don't know how that will play out.
Or would you like the Big Ten where you have Michigan and USC and UCLA and Penn State and Ohio State? A lot of cool matchups in that. Big brands really like playing the big house at Michigan would be amazing. The shoe at Ohio State, the whiteout games at Penn State, like USC, like potentially a cross country game at USC at the Rose Bowl. There's some cool matchups there. So who you, as a fan, who would you want to fit into?
First of all, I think this is good. This will be fun. All right, this will be fun. We thought this would be a short segment. I don't think it's going to be short, but it's fun. It's fun. First of all, I heard one of the quote, he thinks he's an insider on FSU media. Okay, I'm not giving names. There's no reason. No, I know. But he said he made this statement the other night. He said, well, when Bobby Bowden went on the road, because they were talking about these conferences, who would you rather play? Well, when Bobby Bowden went on the road, he was willing to go. I love these words. Quote, willing to go anywhere, play anybody, and he went to Notre Dame, and he went to Michigan, and he went to Nebraska, and he went to LSU, and he just, he would take on anybody. But here's what the insider forgot to tell people. Listen, I go way back, and I know why Bobby Bowden had to go on the road. All right?
It wasn't a brand, right?
Florida State's brand, they had almost eliminated football. I was there. I was in the stands. I was a student. I'm a graduate. We went 0-11. The program was in dumpster fire, much like our men's basketball program. It was a dumpster fire. Bobby Bowden came in, was hired, and I'm not going to get into the exact dates. Nobody cares. He went on the road for a couple of reasons. The first was cash payment. Who gets more money when you bring someone in or you go there?
Yeah, when you're the Jacksonville State.
Yeah, why does Jacksonville State come into Tallahassee to get their ass whipped? Well, they didn't get that way. Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying. But you bring in teams so they can get a paycheck to support their programs. Bobby Bowden had to do the same thing. Plus, he knew if he got his ass whipped, he still got a big check to help him fund the program. Yep. And credit to Bobby Bowden and staff and all those players who went out there and kicked someone else's ass. Yep. They took a few losses, but they kicked other people's ass. They went into Notre Dame, beat Notre Dame. They went into Michigan, beat Michigan. They went to Nebraska. The fans in Nebraska, when they beat Nebraska, stood and clapped for Florida State to come out there and beat them. This is when Nebraska was a powerhouse. So it was a money issue, and Bobby knew kids wanted to play on those stages, and he was able to turn it into a recruiting benefit.
And that's why
so let's make sure we understand that money is a big player no matter where we go, and that's why we can't stay in the ACC. Now, where do I want to go? I kind of get tired of just staying in the South. I want to go to the Big Ten. I want to go to the Big Ten for two reasons. Not just sports. The Big Ten, I believe, now I could be proven wrong, is academically more favorable for Florida State and the AAU issue. Okay? A lot of people don't know what AAU is. Okay? I believe it's the American Association of Universities, and it's all about basically research designation. It's like a sticker, all right? If you meet certain academic and, most importantly, research requirements, then you get the sticker. And for a while, not now, it's not longer a requirement, it's an encouragement to get there.
I think the only non-AAU school
is Nebraska. I think if you're working towards it, then it's looked okay, now, because this is about money. Okay,
interesting that Miami is an AAU school now.
But you can see why Maryland and Rutgers, who is?
Miami just became one.
And Florida is one.
Yeah.
Florida is one, because now it's all based on research dollars and how much research you're doing. Yeah. Now, this is something we should. I need to. It's kind of boring, but I'm going to put it out there. And this was put out by Peter Collins. He said that right now, Florida State, because when they developed their medical school, he said that's where a majority of this research money flows into. You know where it flows from? NIH. Dr. Fauci. And he said because when we opened our medical school, there were people within the state say, well, you can't do research because we already have people doing research. We never thought this would be an issue. We never thought it would be an issue. Well, it is. But they're now established in the FSU is setting up FSU Health, which will be a research and development program through, I believe, Tallahassee Community Hospital or Memorial Hospital. Yeah. So this is going to help us get qualified for this AAU. And he said we hope to get that qualification within 5 years. Okay. So as boring as that is, it's still an issue why I think going to the Big Ten, we benefit from sports and academics. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Like you said, I think the matchup potential, I really, I think it's, like you said, I like the northern connection to it. It would allow me to go to more games as well.
You're selfish.
Easier to get to.
Well, it's actually that was discussed about can fans go? Would they rather just go up the road to Mississippi and Auburn, Alabama?
But a lot of Florida State fans are spread out all over.
They are.
There's
they are.
Contingent in the north above.
Of course.
Georgia and into Virginia.
Well, you and I we've been to Maryland games. Remember all the FSU people?
And I think to that point, it also spreads your recruiting footprint too. Again, like Florida State used to get a ton of talent out of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area.
And we're getting a couple out of there now in the 24
And
class.
I think once again, that's why the Big Ten wanted Maryland, is because they wanted that recruiting footprint of to have another school within there and to have that. And I think once again, it would help Florida State too to have you have matchups there. You're getting exposure up north. You want some better you want some good O linemen? Go play a game in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Have that visit up there and invite some kids to that game and just show them playing Wisconsin. Do a recruiting visit while you're up there.
Are you gonna go to a game when it's 15 degrees in Michigan?
No. I may go to a Penn State game, I may go to a Michigan game. But I think
Penn State. Would you go if it's 15 degrees and sleeting?
I think it would be fun. Like that's what I'm thinking. There's so many cool matchups that you don't typically see. Like the last Penn State game was that Rose Bowl. I think Joe Pa was still the coach in that triple overtime Orange Bowl game. Maybe he wasn't the coach still then, but that's the last game I remember them in a bowl game with Penn State. I can't remember. Michigan was another. I think the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, we
Michigan.
beat.
Yeah, we beat them, which was a great game. But there's so many cool brands in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That I think, and then like the travel up north would give the team great exposure to a new recruiting market and to a new media market as well. I think, and then you add on UCLA and USC. Just once again, you get some West Coast branding as well for those matchups. I don't know how that scheduling would work out. It would probably be not their kind of protected opponents or two-play opponents. Those would probably be every other year or something like that. But every other year seeing USC come to Tallahassee every 4 years.
Incredible!
How cool would that be? Like a program like that, or even UCLA, even if they're like it's just cool brands.
You mean it would be more exciting than bringing in Wake Forest and Georgia Tech and Louisville? Come on, what are you talking about, KB?
The only thing that scares me is that those ticket prices. I mean, it's already expensive to go to the Florida State game just because there's like 5 hotels in Tallahassee.
Not if you go to Northern Alabama game. It's not. It's like $10.
Well, but these baseline opponents, they're going to get away. You're not going to be able to play those cupcakes anymore with the extended playoff, and with these schedules, you're going to have to play a full schedule, and you're going to have to play a good.
You know what?
But outside of that, just to wrap that up, and that's not the.
Wait a minute. But think about the amount of money that comes into Tallahassee when you bring these teams in. You have to build new hotels, though. We're not just talking ticket prices. We're talking about new restaurants. We're talking about new hotels. These people will travel. These people travel.
Exactly. There's not going to be,
because they have.
If you get a schedule of Michigan State, Ohio State,
UCLA,
Penn State, Minnesota, Nebraska. If you get half of these 8 teams on your schedule full time, you won't have. You'll
sell out.
You'll sell out every game.
You'll sell out
because like you said, you're not playing Louisville. You're not playing Wake Forest. Like you're not playing teams that don't travel well, and your fans want to see these teams. Like
they're all new. It's a new toy. It's a new toy.
But even your casual fans want to come out and see. These are good teams too that have.
Historic teams,
as well as continually good teams. Like who doesn't want to go see Ohio State? Who doesn't want to come see Wisconsin? Who doesn't want to come see Nebraska, or even if they're having a down year, or even Iowa, who has continually good teams? Like I just think it'll be good. On the flip side, for SEC, I don't think it's bad if they go that way. I just like if you're playing Alabama or Auburn or Georgia.
Put that up. Do you have that?
Yeah. If you're playing this schedule of Auburn or Alabama, Georgia. LSU, it's tough to say no to that either. Like the travel's a lot easier. You're gonna have a built-in fan base in the South. He probably already watches a lot of Florida State games. It's like I said, travel costs will be easy. You'll have built-in Southern, but you'll have less exposure. All these teams know about Florida State because they're all recruiting against each other anyway. You're already fighting for half these players who are looking at all these schools anyway. So I think there's less. I think there's less of an advantage for Florida State to go to the SEC because you already are in these battleground states anyway, right? You're already fighting for the same players out Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi. You're already fighting in these states for these kids. You need to get into Ohio. You need to get into Wisconsin for those select players that you want.
I think too, because this is college football is the NFL light now, as far as I'm concerned. By having not only play in warm weather, but then you're forced to play in cold weather, you find out what players can do. You don't think the scouts look at some of that and see how did this guy perform in cold weather environments? We're going to bring this guy into Green Bay playing in 15-degree weather?
I don't know if it matters.
I think it does. I think it does. If you can't have a quarterback who can play in cold weather, he doesn't get drafted by a northern team. Yeah. He doesn't get by the Packers.
But I wouldn't overthink that.
I think it's a minor thing.
Yeah, right. But I don't know. But it is an interesting factor. If Florida State has to go up to the Big House in November, that's an interesting aspect that you won't have to worry about playing the SEC. I don't know if that's going to play into their decision making. Like, do we want to go play in Happy Valley in November? Do we want to go play at the Big House or Michigan State in November?
Don't you think we're going to find out from the Florida kids, from our kids that went over to Colorado? They're going to be playing in some nasty weather. And you find out if a player can perform or not. You don't think that's graded that way?
No, and you're right. And a lot of those programs, Penn State, Penn State, Michigan, they get a lot of kids from the state of Florida. They get some
Sure.
top kids from those. So I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. But in those battles, too, it's a good point. If you're playing Penn State, if you're playing Michigan, you may be in more of those battles again. Because once again, you're finding those. You're in the Big Ten. You're finding you're recruiting more against Big Ten schools. I don't know. I think it's more advantageous for Florida State to go to the Big Ten because I just think it expands your footprint. You're already going to be in these battles for the SEC.
I agree.
Kids.
I agree.
I just think it expands your footprint north.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now the question here's the big question, and I've seen this in the traffic, in the noise, that the Big Ten, SEC, and maybe even the Big 12. I don't think they're a factor. I think, they're less a factor. They're all waiting, though, to see if their pitches to Notre Dame are going to be answered. The knock at Notre Dame's door. Does Notre Dame open the door, and then what does that do to the numbers? Let's say the Big Ten says, we're bringing Notre Dame's coming in, but we only need 3 now. Who are the 3 that would come along with them? Would it be Washington, Oregon, Florida State, or Clemson? Who are the 3 out of that group?
Say it again. Notre Dame
answers. They take one of the chairs. There's 3 chairs left. Who gets those 3 chairs out of, let's say, Washington, Oregon, Florida State, and Clemson?
I'd say Oregon.
Given all the angles, given locations,
once again, I'm not inside. I don't know anything.
No, well, we
I would
know
say
that.
Oregon, Florida State, and Clemson.
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
what I would say because you get Indiana, you get the West Coast and Oregon, which.
But what about you get Oregon, which is up in the Northwest. You already have UCLA and USC down that area of California. You have Florida State and Clemson over here in the South.
Yeah.
You've really expanded your wings. You talk about wing spread. I like that.
Yeah, and I think and Oregon's a brand. Oregon's a much bigger.
They
brand
are.
than Washington.
They're good.
And now you may say Eugene's a smaller media market than say Seattle and Washington.
Right.
That may come into because that's the only reason why Seattle's in the conversation, I think, or Washington's in the conversation because of the media market.
Yes, of course, of course.
And that's the only reason Miami's in the conversation is because of the media market. But and that's the only reason I think Miami would be able to move is because of their media market.
The question, I think Miami is sitting on the bubble. I think right now, I think they're sitting on a bubble. They still carry a brand name because of their swagger days and their championships. Yeah. Okay, but I think they're a little bit on the outside. They're down the path a little bit. But do you think Notre Dame answers a knock or stays as a major independent?
I think they do.
With their big contracts with NBC.
They have, I think, 2 or 3 years left on their contract. And they receive right now around $26 million annually from NBC and ACC. They're both that combined agreement. And they say that they expect to receive $60 million per year in their new contract.
Wow.
Why would they? I mean,
they don't have to share it. And they don't share it with anybody.
And they get to create their own schedule.
And they also know this, don't they? Don't they? That anytime they want to answer the knock, any point down the road, year, 5 years, 10 years, they'll get sucked in somewhere.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And NBC highlighted they don't have to share it with anybody. They get that brand recognition of NBC.
Could you imagine if they did not only the 4 teams, Washington, Oregon, Florida State, and Clemson, and Notre Dame, and added one more to even it out, Miami. Could you imagine that power? Now you're looking at 2 power conferences. I believe that there's so much going on in creating these conferences now that, as you said earlier, you have to make bold moves. I think Alford, the president, and the Board of Trustees is ready to make that bold move, and I think we're going to hear that tomorrow.
I do too. And one more note on Notre Dame and why I think they stick with NBC is because their new AD, who just I think becomes the new AD on July 1st. 2024, he'll become the new AD. He's the former chairman of NBC Sports. So, like, they love this relationship. Like, he's just moving from NBC Sports into the AD role next year, when that contract has one more year left on it. So, I think that will continue, and I think Florida State will be in its seat, and likely the Big Ten, with 3 other teams, Clemson, Oregon, and we'll see.
Do you agree with me that the Pac-12 is not a player for Florida State? They're not in this.
They're falling apart.
The Big 12 is really not a player. I don't like their lineup of teams. I think it's a weak conference. I think they're weak. The Big 12.
Oh yeah. They're just grabbing whatever they can.
If Florida State were to go to one of those, then that's a disaster. And it won't happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Don't misquote me. They're not players in this. There's 2 players in this game, and that is chairs for Big Ten and SEC.
Yeah, if
now Colorado is just jumped to the Big 12,
which was which tells me that they didn't get a better offer.
Probably.
I mean, the Pac-12 is imploding. And the Big 12 was all they could get.
Because people know that if Deion, has...
Oh, he'll leave.
He's going to leave in 3. If he wins, he'll leave.
If you go to any pictures of Colorado recruiting events, all their tags on the recruits things say Prime on them. They don't say Colorado. They say Prime.
Yeah. Well,
and it's him.
I don't read too much in.
If they leave,
no,
if he leaves,
right.
Colorado goes back to being obscure and nobody hears about Colorado football ever again.
I don't know.
Yes, you will never hear about Colorado football ever again if he leaves that school.
I'm an alumni there too. I got my graduate degree there.
No one will hear about Colorado football after he leaves that.
Actually, it's pretty nice there, except in the winter.
I'm not saying it's not. I think it's a beautiful place, but I'm just saying it's all about Prime.
All right.
It's all about Prime.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll see. We'll find out all together tomorrow. Hopefully, if we don't, I'll be concerned.
I will be disappointed. I will be surprised. I will be surprised and disappointed if some word coming out of there is not that Florida State didn't submit that letter. Yeah. Because if they don't get that in, it's 22 months. That's 2 more seasons. It's this season and 2 more before you can go to the dance at the next one.
And that's $30+ million left on the table. And that's $30+ million.
That would be huge. I can't imagine how they would even reach a decision to say, well, you know what? Let's make the tough decisions. Just stay with the ACC on promises of what? There's no facts that say you should stay in the ACC. Do you know of any?
No. So that's going to do it. Let us know in the comments below. Where do you think, well, I think we all agree Florida State's going somewhere. Where do you think they're going, and why do you think they should go there? Big Ten, SEC, heaven forbid the Big 12. But where do you guys think they should go? And do you agree that they should go to that school, and why? And who do you think is the better schedule? I think it's Big Ten. I think Big Ten would be fun, but do you think it should be the SEC? And let us know in the comments. We'll see you soon. Hopefully we don't have to do an emergency podcast tomorrow because they didn't announce anything. And
we are ready, though. We are ready, brother. All right, I'm going to be monitoring all day tomorrow.
We should know by 5 o'clock. The meeting's at 3. We should know.
It's at 3. I got to play golf in the morning, but I'll be monitoring.
All right, take care, everyone. Good night. See ya.